Now, I just want to start with a brief review, as brief as I can, of the last course, which was 7 weeks, which was the Principles of Sustainable Design. And this course held all the basic foundational ideas and concepts that are really supporting this course that we're starting now. In that course, we started at the beginning, and we wanted to understand the context of sustainability from really the beginning of humanity. And the way we did that is we thought about understanding sustainability through different worldview shifts, with the argument that actually right now, in the year 2015, we're heading into a new worldview, which I'm going to call the age of integration. We can also look at the history of humanity through different attitudes of development, iconic structures of architecture, energy sources, climate, and also our fundamental relationships to nature. And so if we go all the way back to the tribal era, we can see that we had an interdependent relationship with the natural world. We can only assume that because we don't have textbooks, but we can also use anthropology to try to decipher that. We moved on to the traditional era in humanity, which was really characterized by the energy source of surplus food, helped us to remain sedentary. We also saw the dawning of a new climactic period, the interglacial, known as the Holocene, which is a very warm and consistent time. And we're also seeing the first examples of separation from nature. As we move further into the future, we see that gravity, hydraulics, wind, water wheels actually allows us to create a lot more labor with fewer people. And we're also starting to classify the natural world. As we move further into the future, fossil fuels accelerate the growth of humanity and the population growth and our technology growth. And we begin to think of nature as something to be used or commodified or sold for profit. It wasn't until the age of information that we really began to think carefully about our relationship to the natural world and also seeing the emergence of new, less damaging energy sources. And now I'm arguing that in this course we're entering the age of integration, or the integral worldview, where wind and solar and renewable, perpetual solar energies are going to form the basis of new economies. But we're also seeing the potential for a brand new climactic period called the Anthropocene, which would be the first fundamentally generated climactic period by humans. At the same time, we're also going to see some very positive things about the reconnection back to the natural world. And I would argue that sustainability is less of an expression of desperation to save the species, but really as an expression of a new worldview that is seeking to reestablish a relationship with the natural world. We went on to understand the motivations behind sustainable design and how money plays a role for or for against sustainability, but also about more and more people wanting to do the right thing. So what if we began to look at sustainability not as a dialectic or a fight between empathy and self-interest, where Adam Smith's invisible hand fights against the second invisible hand of altruism and doing the right thing, but what if sustainability was the great resolution of those two forces? What if we could make money and do good for the planet at the same time? I believe that this is the fundamental game changer of the future and the fundamental driver of where sustainability will be successful in the future. And this is really critical because sustainability is a concept where we need to actually make decisions that benefit people that we've never met yet, not just our kids and grandkids, but other people's kids and grandkids. That is why it's so hard to do, and that's why it's so hard to get people to commit to doing, for example, net zero energy buildings. So a sustainable future is within our reach, but only if we begin to think about empathy across future generations. Furthermore, I think that sustainability is a really, really deep and complex topic, and anybody who sits down to try to figure it out really struggles. So frameworks help us make decisions and think about problems in a reliable way. The triple bottom line is probably the most well-established framework for sustainability: people, profit, and planet. However, I'd like to propose the addition of experience as the fourth bottom line, the idea that place could come into the mix: people, profit, planet, and place. Because if it's not beautiful, it's not sustainable, says Lance Hosey from his book. Now, this diagram might seem a little overwhelming at first, but if you think about it, just look at my mouse here. We've got triple bottom line of economic viability, ecological regeneration, and social responsibility. What if we had the fourth experiential bottom line, where all of these great design strategies come into play, and we begin to make beautiful spaces and places that want to be renovated over and over again and time again? The embodied energy that's saved through the use of the quadruple bottom line is really quite dramatic. Moving on, we can think about sustainability even further as a powerful meta framework. The idea that there's lots of paradigms contained within a meta paradigm. It's a giant umbrella of sorts over many different ideas, many different people's versions of what should be done. And what's happening is it's leading to a genuine worldwide movement. And so integral theory and integral sustainable design was discussed in the previous course to understand the role and power of thinking both subjectively and objectively simultaneously, and thinking about collectively and independently simultaneously as well. So there's 4 lenses being used at any given moment. So we can think about the ethics of a design problem. We can think about the systems of a design problem. We can think about its performance, and we can think about its beauty. And when we begin to think about all of those at the same time, we can see a holistic, interdependent design solution. Pretty powerful. Certainly we have to understand energy. Now that we have a framework and now that we have some perspective, we can think about energy from a more holistic way. And we can understand that energy is really responsible for the quality of life that we have. And this course in particular could never have been driven or discovered without the use of fossil fuels, for example. So we know that fuels and energy come with tremendous risks and tremendous benefits. For you as a sustainable architect, you need to begin to think about being literate in energy so that you can guide design decisions to make sense. So you can think about energy like this, which is really, really sustainable, but actually doesn't generate a lot of power. You can think about energy like this, which is extremely powerful, extremely portable, extremely useful. However, does generate a lot of problems in the environment. And finally, we can think about these kinds of energy sources, which are really low impact, very expensive, low energy generators, but maybe in combination we can begin to think about all of these generating a sustainable future. And finally, we want to look at the environment and understand the state of the environment, and we want to understand the amplifications and feedback loops that occur in the natural environment that are going to accelerate the changes that we see. Whether the changes are coming from us as carbon emitters or CO2 emitters or methane emitters, or as part of a natural cycle, those changes and amplifications are going to continue. We need to begin to think about not only looking at buildings and projects and landscapes that are going to reduce our impacts, but actually understand projects that are going to be able to survive given shocks of high temperatures, dramatic weather, etc. So here, the Russian tundra methane is probably one of the best examples of these feedback or amplification loops, where as it gets warmer, more and more methane is released. That methane becomes a greenhouse gas, which generates more warming, which then releases more methane into the environment. Finally, if you're feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, we can begin to think about sustainability as a giant change management challenge. And therefore, we need to partner and collaborate across disciplines, genders, class, creed, race, ethnicity, geography, etc., to begin to find solutions that are going to attack a really big problem, which I like to think of as an opportunity. And so these groups are coming together to chip away at the problem. Green building and sustainable architecture is one of many chips in the larger sustainability problem. I'm sure you're taking courses on sustainable food, sustainable energy, etc. Here we're tending to look at sustainable architecture. And so that brings us to the point of what this course is going to be about, which is really looking at the methodologies, the practices, the techniques and strategies that all come from an ethical core, an idea that we want to do the right thing and we want to take care of future generations. Standards and certifications and metrics are ways for us to do that in a very effective and efficient way and in a very informed way. So this next set of videos are really going to take you through not just the overview of rating systems, but some of the actual rating systems themselves, how they function, and what kind of benefits they might have. And we want to do that because we want to understand that these rating systems play a role in how we think about energy, how we think about the planet, and how we can catapult our efforts forward. So the LEED rating system, for example, was instrumental in moving us to what I call the green plateau. So it's raised the overall bar for sustainability for green building much higher than it ever was in the 1980s. However, we want to use new rating systems like Passive House and Living Building Challenge to bring us to what I call authentic sustainability, the idea that buildings, landscapes, interiors can actually regenerate the natural world instead of destroying it. And so that's the end of this video. I hope that you'll join the ranks of us trying to enable a sustainable future. And I'm hoping that the concrete strategies and practices and techniques will help you in this course. I really, really, really recommend you go back and take my Principles of Sustainable Design course as a foundation. But if not, hopefully this introduction will have served you well.